A respected judge pulled over for simply being a black man in a suit. What started as a routine stop escalated into a viral nightmare, exposing a raw wound in our justice system. But this isn't just one man's story. The sleek silver Mercedes S-Class lurched to a stop at a desolate rest area off I-75, 50 miles west of Detroit, Michigan, just past 10 a.m. Marcus Wright, a district court judge with over 2 decades on the bench, gripped the wheel, his charcoal suit sharp, a crisp white shirt signaling the high-stakes policy summit with the state's governor set for noon. A sleek black briefcase, stuffed with critical briefs for the meeting, sat on the passenger seat. But before he could exhale, a gray state trooper SUV roared in behind him, its red and blue lights slashing through the morning fog. Officer Travis Boone, eyes narrowed to slits, sized up the scene. To him, a black man in a luxury car at a lonely rest stop spelled trouble. He radioed his partner, Officer Lena Cole, but impatience overtook him. Boots crunching on gravel, he stormed toward Marcus's window, hand already twitching near his holster. Marcus lowered the glass, hands steady on the wheel, his voice calm but laced with iron. "Good morning, officer. Is something wrong?" Boone's stare was icy, unrelenting. "Got a report of a stolen car matching this one. Seen peeling out of a gas station nearby." Marcus's brow creased, not in fear, but disbelief. "That's news to me. I've been driving this car all morning. My registration's right here if you need it." Boone ignored the offer, his voice dropping to a menacing growl. "Get out of the car now." The order was a whip crack, dripping with assumed guilt. Marcus's jaw clenched. He'd seen this play out too many times in his courtroom. Slowly, deliberately, he stepped out, his 6'2" frame towering yet composed, a man who knew his rights, but also the price of defiance. By the time Cole's SUV screeched into the lot, the air crackled with tension. Boone had Marcus at the rear of the Mercedes, hands raised, while a handful of travelers, some clutching gas station sodas, watched in stunned silence. "I'd like to know what I'm being accused of," Marcus said, his voice steady but carrying a weight that demanded answers. Boone didn't respond. Instead, he marched to the driver's door, reached inside without permission, and began rummaging through the console. Marcus's voice sliced through the air, firm and clear. "Officer, I do not consent to a search." That was the spark. Boone whirled, eyes blazing. "That's obstruction," he barked, seizing Marcus's arm and twisting it back. Cold steel cuffs snapped shut. Cole, hesitant but complicit, secured the other wrist. Marcus didn't flinch, didn't fight. "You're making a dangerous mistake," he said, his words low and piercing, a warning from a man who knew a storm was brewing. A teenage barista, phone trembling in her hands, was already recording, her voice shaking in the background. "This is wrong. He's done nothing," an elderly trucker nearby muttered. "That's no criminal. Look at him." But Boone and Cole were blind to it, marching Marcus to their SUV like he was a fugitive. Yet Marcus moved with unshaken dignity, head high, eyes locked on the horizon. In the back seat, he sat silent, not raging, not pleading, but calculating. He knew something the officers didn't. This was far from over. At the Flint precinct, Marcus sat in a cold metal chair, wrists raw from the cuffs, now removed. The booking officer barely glanced at his ID, treating him like just another suspect. To them, he was a middle-aged black man, nothing more. His calm, forged from years of presiding over justice, only deepened their suspicion. "Quiet ones are always hiding something," Boone muttered, pacing past the holding area. Cole lingered in the shadows, uneasy but mute. Marcus had asked 5 times to call his office, citing his urgent summit in Detroit. Each request was brushed off. The precinct buzzed with routine phones ringing, radios crackling. But to Marcus it was a suffocating silence, a system churning without question. Officers smirked at his polished loafers and tailored suit, one whispering, "Thinks he's a big shot." Marcus heard it. He didn't react. He'd faced worse in his 20 years as a judge. After nearly 3 hours, Sergeant Carla Hayes stormed in, her salt and pepper hair pulled tight, her sharp eyes cutting through the room. "How long's he been here?" she demanded. 3 hours, a desk officer replied. "Obstruction in a car match." Hayes's frown deepened. She approached Marcus, studying him. "Have you been read your rights, sir?" "Yes," he replied. "But I've been denied a call to my office. I have a meeting with the courier." Her gaze lingered on his precise, steady tone. "Name?" she asked. "Marcus Wright," he said, then added, "Check that name carefully, Sergeant. This is about to spiral." Boone scoffed from across the room. "He's been playing that card all day." Hayes silenced him with a glare. "Zip it." She moved to a terminal, fingers flying over the keys. The room grew heavier with each second. Hayes's face shifted as the screen glowed. "The Honorable Marcus T. Wright, presiding judge, 9th District Court." She blinked, then checked the photo. It was him. She glanced back at Marcus, who met her eyes with unshakable calm. She crossed the precinct in swift strides, boots echoing. "You said you had a meeting in Detroit," she said, standing before him. "Yes," Marcus replied. "A criminal justice summit with the governor." "A beat. And you are?" "Judge Marcus Wright," he confirmed, voice like steel. Hayes exhaled, her composure fraying. "Your Honor, I'm deeply sorry. This is a mistake." Boone, still slouched against the wall, froze. "What the hell?" Hayes turned on him, her voice ice cold. "You arrested a sitting judge. No cause, no warrant, no call. This is a disaster." The precinct fell silent. Cole's face paled. Hayes turned back to Marcus. "Would you like to contact the governor's office now, sir?" He gave a tired nod. "Yes, Sergeant. Let's move." By dusk, the rest stop video had detonated online. The 30-second clip, Marcus in cuffs, calmly questioning Boone, while the barista's voice cried, "This is insane," exploded across X, TikTok and beyond. "Man arrested for being black in a suit" became the rallying cry, hitting 3 million views by midnight. News outlets pounced, juxtaposing Marcus's judicial profile with images of his arrest. Hashtags like Judge Wright and highway profiling trended as outrage surged. The governor's office issued a biting statement. "This incident is under urgent review." Protesters swarmed the Flint precinct by morning, signs reading "Justice before judgment" and "Cuffed for honor." Marcus's silence in the video, his resolute poise, struck deeper than any chant. He wasn't just a judge, he was a mirror, exposing a system that could misjudge its own. The next morning, the state capitol's halls thrummed with tension. Reporters packed the corridor outside the Justice Summit. At 10 a.m., the mahogany doors swung open. Marcus Wright strode in, navy suit immaculate, briefcase in hand, his presence silencing the room. The governor approached, voice low. "Judge Wright, we're honored you're here." Marcus's reply was razor sharp. "The timing, Governor, says it all." He requested to speak first. "Yesterday, I was handcuffed en route to this meeting. No cause, no warrant, just suspicion tied to my skin." His voice filled the room, steady but searing. "This isn't my story alone. It's a symptom of a system that sees threat before humanity. Trust demands accountability. Dignity isn't negotiable." A reporter in the front row dabbed her eyes. A protester watching outside clutched her phone, live streaming his words. The summit turned from policy to reckoning. Videos rolled, experts weighed in, and activists joined. Then a bombshell. An emergency hearing was called to review Boone and Cole's conduct, with Marcus appointed to oversee it. He hesitated, wary of bias, but accepted when cleared. In the packed lower chamber, Boone and Cole faced scrutiny. Body cam footage contradicted their reports. Cole admitted she hadn't checked Marcus's ID. Boone's defense crumbled under questioning. Marcus, presiding, was unrelenting. "This isn't about shame," he said. "It's about whether your actions violated law and decency." The panel's ruling was unanimous. Negligence, protocol breaches, and bias-driven misconduct. Both officers faced suspension pending further investigation. The room held its breath as Marcus read the decision, his voice a gavel of truth. That evening, at a press conference, the governor stood beside Marcus. Today wasn't vengeance, it was responsibility. New reforms were announced: mandatory bias training, civilian oversight boards, and a statewide task force. Marcus spoke briefly. "This happens to people without cameras, without titles. It's a wound that needs truth to heal." His words echoed. Within days, precincts began auditing arrests. Town halls sprang up. Marcus's image, calm, resolute, became a beacon of justice, reclaimed. 3 months later, Marcus stood before new recruits at the Michigan Police Training Center. The reforms sparked by his arrest were now standard: bias awareness, de-escalation, rights training. He spoke with quiet fire. 3 months ago, I was a threat based on a glance. That could have broken me. Instead, it fueled my purpose. You're here to protect dignity, not just laws. A young recruit paused afterward, meeting his gaze. Thank you, sir. Marcus nodded. Serve with integrity. As he left, Marcus felt a shift, not in the air but in the future. Change wasn't loud. It was in the quiet steps. One choice, one voice, one moment. Justice wasn't a word. It was a standard he'd uphold, no matter the cost. His story, born from a wrongful arrest, became a call to action. True power doesn't roar. It stands firm, speaks truth, and waits for the world to rise. The stone steps of the Michigan Police Training Center still radiated warmth from the spring sun. As Judge Marcus Wright walked away, his polished loafers clicking softly. The recruits' faces, young, earnest, some visibly stirred by his words, lingered in his mind. He'd planted a spark, but the ground was hard, and he knew it. Change was a fragile thing, and the system he'd challenged was built to resist. As he reached his silver Mercedes, parked beneath a blooming maple, his phone vibrated sharply. A text from the governor's office. Press conference tomorrow, 9 a.m. Your presence is critical. Marcus's jaw tightened. He shunned the spotlight, but this wasn't about him anymore. It was about the countless others whose stories never reached a viral video. He fired back a reply. I'll be there. In Flint, the precinct was a pressure cooker. The viral video had ignited a firestorm, and the fallout was merciless. Officer Travis Boone, now on leave, sat in his darkened apartment, scrolling through X-posts that branded him a symbol of systemic rot. His name was everywhere. Justice for Wright threads dissected his every move, every word in the body cam footage. He slammed his phone down, the screen frozen on Marcus's calm face, as cuffs snapped shut. Officer Lena Cole, meanwhile, was unraveling in silence. She'd spent the night replaying the arrest, haunted by her failure to speak up, to challenge Boone's lead. Her complicity stung more than the suspension. At the precinct, Sergeant Carla Hayes was drowning in paperwork, dodging reporters camped outside and fielding calls from internal affairs. The department was under siege, every officer feeling the heat. Whispers of reform clashed with resentment. Some saw Marcus as a hero, others a threat to their world. By 8 a.m. the next morning, the state capitol steps were a sea of protesters, hundreds strong, waving signs, end profiling now and truth before cuffs. News vans clogged the streets, their antennas slicing the sky. Inside, the press conference room crackled with tension. Reporters adjusting mics, aides whispering frantically, the governor pacing near the podium. Marcus arrived early, his navy suit a stark contrast to the chaos, his black briefcase a quiet reminder of the summit he'd nearly missed. The governor spotted him and crossed the room in swift strides. Judge Wright, thank you for being here. This is bigger than we thought. Marcus's eyes locked onto his, unflinching. It's always been this big, Governor. It's just exposed now. At 9 a.m. sharp, the governor took the podium, flanked by Marcus and a panel of legal experts. Cameras flashed, live streams buzzed across platforms. What happened to Judge Marcus Wright, the governor began. His voice taut, was a failure of our system, but it's also a chance to rebuild trust. He unveiled bold reforms, mandatory body cam audits, civilian review boards, and a statewide task force to root out bias in policing. The crowd murmured, some nodding, others scribbling furiously. Then he turned to Marcus. Judge Wright, the floor is yours. Marcus stepped forward, his presence silencing the room like a thunderclap. No raised voice, no theatrics, just the weight of a man who'd faced injustice and refused to break. 3 days ago, he began, his voice low but slicing through the air. I was handcuffed for no reason but the color of my skin. My rights, my dignity, my voice, stripped away. I'm not the first, and I won't be the last, unless we act. He paused, letting the words sear into the audience. This isn't one arrest, it's a system that assumes guilt before innocence, that sees threat before humanity. We can't fix it with promises. It takes accountability, training, and a commitment to see people as people, not suspects. A reporter in the front row wiped her eyes. A protester outside, watching on her phone, gripped her sign tighter. Questions flew like bullets. Judge Wright, will you sue the department? What's next for the officers? Marcus answered with precision, each word a measured strike. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here for reform. The officers' actions are under review, as they should be. But this is bigger than two people. It's about ensuring no one else sits in a precinct, silenced, because of who they are. The room buzzed, but Marcus stepped back, letting the governor handle the rest. He'd said enough. As he left the podium, an aide approached, voice low. Sir, the task force wants you to lead it. Marcus's eyes narrowed. I'll consider it, he said, but his mind was already racing, weighing the cost. Leading meant more battles, more scrutiny, but also a chance to shape what came next. By noon, the story had gone global. CNN ran a segment. Judge in cuffs, America's wake-up call. BBC called it a stark expose of systemic bias. On X, Marcus Wright trended alongside clips of his speech, shared by activists, lawyers, and ordinary citizens. A law professor posted, "This man's resolve is a lesson in dignity." A Detroit teen tweeted, "If they can cuff a judge, what hope do I have?" Comments flooded in. Thousands strong, angry, hopeful, demanding change. Community groups held vigils, not just for Marcus, but for every untold story. The Flint precinct, now a lightning rod, faced daily protests. Officers who once smirked now dodged cameras. Inside the department, the probe into Boone and Cole intensified. Internal Affairs uncovered a trail, dozens of complaints against Boone for heavy-handed tactics, mostly against minorities, buried or ignored. Cole's record was cleaner, but her silence during Marcus's arrest was damning. The state attorney general's office took over, signaling a wider investigation into the precinct's practices. Hayes, now a reluctant whistleblower, turned over logs showing Boone's repeated protocol violations. "I should have stopped it sooner," she told investigators, her voice heavy. The precinct split, some rallied behind Boone, claiming he was just doing his job. Others saw the tide turning. A rookie quit, leaving a note, "This isn't what I signed up for." Marcus returned to his courtroom the next week, every eye on him. Defendants, attorneys, even the bailiff watched differently, not with pity, but awe. He presided as always, rulings fair, demeanor unshaken. But the incident lingered, not in his words, but in the air. A young black defendant, facing a minor charge, met his gaze and said, "I saw what happened to you, Your Honor. Thank you for standing up." Marcus nodded, face impassive, but the words hit deep. He hadn't done this for praise. He'd done it because the system he'd served for 20 years had to change. A month later, Marcus accepted the role as head of the governor's task force on police reform. The announcement came at a packed Detroit press conference, community leaders at his side. His first move, a public database tracking officer complaints, open to all. "Transparency isn't punishment," he said. "It's trust." Police unions pushed back, calling it a witch hunt. Marcus didn't flinch. He met with them, heard their fears, and countered with facts. Over 60% of wrongful arrests in Michigan targeted minorities, despite them being under 20% of the population. "This isn't about blame," he told them. "It's about fixing what's broken." The reforms gained momentum. By summer's end, Michigan rolled out new training across precincts. De-escalation, bias recognition, and constitutional rights. Body cams became mandatory, footage reviewed monthly by civilian boards. Marcus's task force held town halls, hearing from mothers who'd lost sons, teens who'd been profiled, and officers who admitted the system rewarded aggression over restraint. Each story chipped away at the old ways, forcing the state to face its reflection. Boone and Cole's final hearing came in late June. The room was packed. Media activists, even recruits from the training center. Marcus recused himself to avoid bias. But the evidence was crushing. Body cam footage, witness accounts, and a history of ignored complaints. Boone was fired, his badge revoked. Cole got a year's suspension and mandatory retraining, her career on life support. As they left, protesters outside stood in silent rows, holding signs with Marcus's words, "Dignity isn't negotiable." The officers passed, heads bowed, the weight of their actions heavier than any cuff. Marcus's story didn't end there. It sparked a movement. By fall, other states eyed Michigan's reforms as a blueprint. Marcus testified before Congress, his steady voice cutting through partisan noise. "Justice isn't a title or a paycheck," he said. It's a choice we make daily. His words echoed in editorials, sermons, and protest signs. He didn't chase the fame but wielded it to amplify the voiceless. Years later, in his chambers overlooking the courthouse lawn, Marcus stood, gazing at the streets below. A new generation of officers patrolled, trained under his reforms. The viral video was a fading memory, but its impact endured. Complaints against officers dropped 30% in Michigan. Trust, though fragile, was growing. Marcus hadn't sought to be a symbol, but he'd become one, a man who turned injustice into a call for fairness. As he closed his briefcase and headed home, Marcus thought of the young recruit who'd thanked him at the training center. He hoped that officer was out there, making the right choices. Justice wasn't won in one day or one ruling. It was built in quiet moments, small decisions, the refusal to look away. Marcus Wright had stood firm once, and the world was catching up. His story wasn't just his, it belonged to everyone who believed dignity was worth fighting for.